The Discovery. The stars beyond Starbase Omega-7 shimmered like scattered diamonds against the black void of space. Dr. Elena Rodriguez pressed her palm against the observation deck's cool, transparent steel window, watching the final preparations for today's joint military exercise. 3 years of working alongside alien species had taught her many things, but humans still surprised her the most. "Fascinating creatures, your people," came a melodic voice behind her. Elena turned to see Commander Thexkar approaching, his compound eyes catching the light from multiple angles. The Zephyrian's insectoid features might have frightened humans centuries ago, but Elena had grown to appreciate the beauty in his crystalline carapace and graceful movements. "We're all fascinating in our own ways, Commander," Elena replied, adjusting her datapad. As the station's chief xenopsychologist, she had spent countless hours studying the behavioral patterns of the 17 different species that now called the Galactic Federation home. Today's exercise should provide excellent data on cross-species tactical cooperation. Thexkar's antennae twitched with what Elena had learned indicated amusement. "Your optimism is refreshing, Doctor. Though I confess I remain puzzled by human military doctrine. Your soldiers seem to rely heavily on constant communication, yet in our historical analyses, we've found records of human victories achieved with minimal coordination." Before Elena could respond, the station's alert system chimed softly. Captain James Mitchell's voice echoed through the corridor. "All personnel, this is a drill. Repeat, this is a drill. Exercise harmony begins in 10 minutes. All observation teams to designated stations." Elena gathered her equipment and headed toward the command center with Thexkar. The exercise was designed to test how effectively human and alien forces could work together during a simulated pirate attack on a civilian transport. It was routine, safe, and completely predictable. None of them expected the Ravager clan to choose that exact moment for a real attack. The first explosion shook the entire station. Elena stumbled, catching herself against a bulkhead as emergency lights bathed everything in pulsing red. The artificial gravity fluctuated wildly, sending loose objects floating toward the ceiling before crashing down again. "This is not a drill!" Admiral Vorthak's crystalline voice rang out over the intercom, his Centaurian accent making the words sound like music even in crisis. "Repeat, this is not a drill. All military personnel to battle stations immediately." Elena's training kicked in. As a non-combatant, her job was to reach the secure research bay and continue documenting whatever was about to unfold. She ran through corridors filled with beings of various species, all moving with urgent purpose. The Zephyrians flew using their gossamer wings, while the amphibious Aquarians propelled themselves forward with their powerful webbed limbs. Humans ran with their characteristic endurance, and the massive Ursinian bear people lumbered forward with surprising speed. The command center buzzed with controlled chaos when Elena arrived. Multiple screens showed tactical displays of the attacking force, 12 ships bearing the skull and crossbones insignia of the Ravager clan, one of the most ruthless pirate organizations in known space. "Damage report," Admiral Vorthak commanded, his crystalline form pulsing with stress-induced color changes. "3 hull breaches on decks 7 through 9, reported Lieutenant Commander Vexia, a tentacled Maloid whose species excelled at multitasking. "Artificial gravity is failing in sections 12 through 15. We have 17 wounded, no casualties yet." Elena activated her recording equipment and began documenting the unprecedented situation. Never before had a joint military exercise become a real battle. The implications for interspecies cooperation under extreme stress were enormous. "Enemy force composition?" Admiral Vorthak asked. Captain Mitchell, now in full combat gear, studied the tactical display. 12 assault vessels, various classes. They're using modified Helix-class destroyers with enhanced shielding. Estimated crew of 300, all armed with quantum disruptors. Our defensive capabilities? 6 patrol ships plus the station's defensive systems, Thexkar answered, his compound eyes processing multiple data streams simultaneously. "We're outnumbered 2 to 1, but our position gives us some advantage." Elena watched the human soldiers gathering in the deployment bay through the security feed. Something caught her attention. The humans, who had been chattering constantly during the exercise preparations, had fallen completely silent. Not the disciplined quiet of soldiers awaiting orders, but something deeper. Something almost eerie. Captain Mitchell touched his communication device. "Alpha team, prepare for boarding. Action. Bravo team, defend the power core. Charlie team, protect the civilian areas." He paused, waiting for acknowledgement. Silence. Elena frowned. The human soldiers were clearly listening. Their body language indicated they understood their orders, but none of them responded verbally. She adjusted her sensors to focus on the human contingent. Captain Mitchell, Admiral Vorthak said, his crystalline voice tinged with concern. Are your soldiers experiencing communication difficulties? Mitchell looked puzzled. He tried his radio again. Alpha Team, please confirm receipt of orders. Still nothing. But Elena noticed something extraordinary happening. The human soldiers were moving with perfect coordination despite the lack of verbal communication. They checked their equipment in synchronized movements, formed tactical groups without any apparent signals, and positioned themselves with mathematical precision. Sir, Mitchell reported, his voice tight with confusion. I'm not receiving any responses from my teams, but they appear to be functioning normally. The first wave of pirates breached the station's outer hull with explosive charges. The sound of cutting lasers and shouted commands in various alien languages echoed through the corridors. Elena watched her displays as the enemy forces spread through the station like a virus. Then something remarkable happened. The silent human soldiers moved as one. Alpha Team engaged the pirates in Corridor Junction 7 with perfect timing, their weapons fire creating interlocking fields that trapped the attackers without a single word being exchanged. Bravo Team anticipated an attack on the power core that hadn't even been attempted yet, positioning themselves to intercept pirates who were still 3 levels away. How are they doing this? Thexkar whispered, his antennae quivering with amazement. There's no communication between them, no visible signals, yet they're fighting as if they share a single mind. Elena's instruments were going wild. Brain activity monitors showed the humans' neural patterns had synchronized in ways she'd never seen before. It was as if their individual consciousness had merged into something larger, something collective. Charlie Team demonstrated the phenomenon most dramatically. When pirates broke through the auxiliary entrance, the 5 human soldiers moved like a single organism. Private Johnson rolled left and fired precisely as Sergeant Santos threw a flash grenade that detonated exactly where Johnson's shots would drive the attackers. Corporal Williams provided covering fire from an angle that perfectly complemented the others' positions, while specialists Chen and Okafor flanked the enemy with timing so precise it seemed rehearsed, all without saying a word. The alien soldiers, magnificent fighters in their own right, struggled to adapt to this silent coordination. The Zephyrians relied on rapid pheromone signals, the Aquarians used subsonic calls, and the Centaurians communicated through harmonic resonance. But the humans had simply stopped communicating entirely, yet somehow became more effective than ever. Elena documented everything, her scientific mind racing to understand what she was witnessing. The human soldiers weren't just quiet, they had entered some kind of altered state of consciousness that allowed them to function as a collective organism. The battle raged for 47 minutes. When it ended, 12 pirate ships had been either destroyed or disabled, and Starbase Omega-7 remained intact. The human soldiers had achieved impossible tactical victories, often anticipating enemy movements before the pirates themselves seemed aware of their intentions. As soon as the all-clear sounded, the humans snapped back to normal. The eerie silence broke, and suddenly they were talking, laughing, and asking each other what had happened. Did anyone else feel that? Sergeant Santos asked, removing her helmet and shaking out her dark hair. It was like I could sense where everyone was going to be before they moved. Yeah. Private Johnson nodded, his young face creased with confusion. I knew exactly when you were going to throw that grenade. I knew before you did. Captain Mitchell approached Elena, his expression troubled. Dr. Rodriguez, I need to ask you something. During the battle, I couldn't hear any of my soldiers' communications, but somehow I knew exactly what they were all doing. It was like we were all connected somehow. Elena studied her data, her heart racing with the implications of what she'd recorded. Captain, I think your soldiers did something extraordinary today, something that might change our understanding of human consciousness itself. Admiral Vorthak joined them, his crystalline form still pulsing with residual stress colors. Dr. Rodriguez, in 3 centuries of military service across 4 different species, I have never witnessed anything like what your soldiers accomplished today. They fought as if they were telepathic. But humans aren't telepathic, Thexkar added, his compound eyes focused intently on Elena. Your species has been extensively tested. You show no psychic abilities whatsoever. Elena looked at her readings again, then at the human soldiers who were now acting completely normal, chatting and joking as if nothing unusual had happened. Maybe we've been looking at telepathy the wrong way. Maybe what we witnessed wasn't about sending thoughts, but about sharing consciousness. Over the following days, Elena threw herself into analyzing the battle recordings. She interviewed every human soldier who had participated, ran psychological profiles, and consulted with xenopsychologists from 12 different species. The pattern became clear. Under extreme stress, when verbal communication became impossible or unnecessary, humans could somehow synchronize their consciousness to an extraordinary degree. She called it the silent sync. The phenomenon wasn't completely unknown in human history. Elena found references to similar events in ancient Earth military records. Small units that achieved impossible victories while maintaining radio silence. Soldiers who seemed to anticipate each other's actions with supernatural precision, and battles where human forces moved as one mind. But it had never been documented scientifically, never been studied or understood. Most military historians had dismissed such reports as exaggeration or myth. Commander Thexkar visited Elena's lab on the 5th day after the battle. "Doctor, I've been analyzing the tactical patterns from the engagement. By every mathematical model my people have developed, the human actions should have been impossible without some form of instantaneous communication." Elena looked up from her microscope where she'd been studying brain tissue samples from volunteer human soldiers. "Commander, I think we're dealing with something far more profound than enhanced communication. I think we're seeing evidence of a collective consciousness that emerges under specific stress conditions." "A collective consciousness?" Thexkar's antennae twitched with skepticism. "That sounds almost mystical, Doctor." "No more mystical than quantum entanglement or gravitational waves," Elena replied. "We know consciousness is still poorly understood, even with all our advanced neuroscience. What if humans evolved a survival mechanism that allows them to temporarily merge their individual awareness into something greater?" She brought up her analysis on the main display. "Look at these neural patterns. During the battle, the human soldiers' brainwaves synchronized in ways that shouldn't be possible. Their individual consciousness didn't disappear, but it became part of something larger. They could anticipate each other's actions because, in a very real sense, they were acting with one mind." Thexkar studied the data with his compound eyes, processing multiple information streams simultaneously. "The implications are staggering. If humans can naturally access collective consciousness under stress, it explains many historical anomalies in your species' military records. And it raises questions about human potential that we've never considered," Elena added. "What other capabilities might emerge under different conditions? What does this mean for human evolution and our place in the galaxy?" The door to Elena's lab chimed and Admiral Vorthak entered, his crystalline form glowing with urgent energy. "Dr. Rodriguez, I need to speak with you immediately. Word of what happened here has reached the Galactic Council. They're calling an emergency session." Elena felt a chill run down her spine. "An emergency session? Why?" "Because," Admiral Vorthak said, his harmonic voice carrying undertones of both wonder and concern, "some species view the silent sync as a potential threat. They're asking whether humans are more than they appear to be and whether that poses a danger to galactic peace." Elena looked at her data one more time, then at the peaceful starfield beyond her laboratory window. The discovery of the silent sync had been a breakthrough in understanding human consciousness, but it was also opening questions that might shake the very foundation of interspecies relations. The humans were no longer just another member of the Galactic Federation. They were something unique, something powerful, and something that demanded a new level of respect and perhaps fear from their alien allies. The silent sync was just the beginning. The investigation. The Galactic Council chamber on Nexus Prime hummed with tension as representatives from 17 species gathered around the massive circular table. Elena Rodriguez stood at the center, her research data floating in holographic displays above her head, feeling the weight of dozens of alien eyes upon her. 3 weeks had passed since the incident at Starbase Omega-7, and the ripple effects were spreading throughout the galaxy. Ambassador Sarah Chen, the human representative to the council, gave Elena an encouraging nod from her position at the table. Elena had worked with Sarah before and trusted her diplomatic skills, but today's session would test everyone's abilities to navigate uncharted territory. High Counselor Zerthul, an ancient ethereal being whose energy-based form shimmered like controlled lightning, called the session to order. "Fellow beings of the Federation, we gather today to address what some are calling the most significant discovery in xenopsychology since first contact. Dr. Rodriguez, please present your findings." Elena activated her presentation, her voice steady despite her nervousness. "Honored counselors, What we witnessed at Starbase Omega-7 was not an anomaly, but rather the emergence of a previously unknown aspect of human consciousness. Under extreme stress conditions, humans can temporarily access what I term collective consciousness, a state where individual minds synchronize to function as a unified organism. The chamber erupted in whispers and clicking sounds as various species processed this information through their unique forms of communication. Elena noticed the Zephyrian delegation's antennae quivering with excitement, while the Moloid's tentacles writhed with what appeared to be concern. Counselor Vrakthal of the reptilian hegemony leaned forward, his scaled features reflecting skepticism. Doctor, you're describing something that sounds remarkably similar to what my people might call a hive mind. Are you suggesting humans are a collective species masquerading as individuals? No, Counselor, Elena replied firmly. This is precisely the opposite. Humans are fundamentally individual beings who can temporarily access collective states when necessary. The ability appears to be evolutionary, likely developed as a survival mechanism during our species' development on Earth. Professor Clicksoth, the Aquarian behavioral scientist who had joined Elena's research team, rose from his specialized water-filled chair. His amphibious features glistened under the chamber's lights as he spoke. If I may add to Dr. Rodriguez's presentation, our joint research over the past 3 weeks has revealed fascinating details about this phenomenon. Elena nodded gratefully. The collaboration with Clicksoth had been invaluable, bringing his species' unique understanding of group consciousness to bear on the human mystery. Professor Clicksoth has helped us design controlled experiments to better understand the silent sync. The holographic display shifted to show footage from their recent experiments. Human volunteers in a specially designed training facility faced increasingly difficult scenarios while alien observers monitored their every action. In our first test, Elena explained, we placed 12 human soldiers in a complex maze with multiple threats. Initially, they communicated normally, but as stress levels increased and communication became difficult or dangerous, they gradually fell silent. The footage showed the remarkable transformation. As the humans stopped talking, their movements became increasingly coordinated. They began anticipating each other's actions, covering angles they shouldn't have known needed covering, and responding to threats before they were clearly visible. Counselor Merthok of the Silicon Collective, whose crystalline form resonated with harmonic frequencies, chimed in. The mathematical precision of their movements during silence is extraordinary. Our analysis suggests they achieve tactical coordination that should be impossible without some form of instantaneous communication. Elena brought up brain scan data from the experiments. What we discovered is that during the silent sync, human neural patterns undergo dramatic changes. Individual brainwaves begin to synchronize, creating coherent patterns across multiple minds. It's as if their consciousness temporarily merges while maintaining individual identity. The display showed colorful brain scans where individual patterns gradually aligned until they moved in perfect harmony. Elena continued, "This isn't telepathy as we traditionally understand it. The humans aren't reading each other's thoughts. Instead, they're sharing a unified awareness of their environment and situation." Sergeant Maria Santos, who had volunteered to testify about her experiences, stepped forward. Elena had specifically requested that actual participants be present to answer questions. Santos was a demolitions expert whose performance during the experiments had been particularly remarkable. "Honored counselors," Santos began, her voice clear and confident, "I can tell you what it feels like from the inside. When we enter the silent sync, it's not like I can hear other people's thoughts. It's more like suddenly realizing that we're all part of the same organism. I know where my teammates are going to move, because their movement is part of my movement. We're still ourselves, but we're also something bigger." Lieutenant Tom Bradley, a young pilot who had shown exceptional abilities during the aerial combat simulations, added his perspective. "It's like the difference between playing music alone and playing in a perfect orchestra. You're still playing your own instrument, but you're also part of something that's greater than the sum of its parts." The ethereal High Counselor's energy form fluctuated with what Elena had learned indicated deep thought. This phenomenon raises profound questions about the nature of consciousness itself. If humans can access collective awareness while maintaining individuality, what does this suggest about the fundamental nature of mind? Elena had been hoping someone would ask that question. "Counselor, we believe this discovery has implications far beyond military applications. The silent sync might represent a new understanding of consciousness as something that can exist simultaneously at individual and collective levels. Counselor Thexkar, who had been present during the original incident, spoke up. Dr. Rodriguez, during our experiments, we attempted to replicate this phenomenon in volunteers from other species. The results were unsuccessful. Why do you think humans possess this ability while other Federation species do not? Professor Clicksoth answered this question. Our research suggests it relates to human evolutionary history. Earth appears to have been an unusually dangerous world during human development. Your species evolved not just individual intelligence but also the ability to coordinate group survival responses without revealing your positions to predators. Elena nodded. We found references to similar phenomena throughout human history. Ancient human warriors achieving impossible victories through silent coordination, exploration teams surviving in hostile environments by moving as one mind, and even civilian populations organizing rescue efforts with supernatural efficiency during disasters. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Elena could sense the mixture of wonder and concern emanating from the various species representatives. Counselor Zekthara of the Hive Queens, whose species represented the only other collective consciousness in the Federation, finally spoke. Dr. Rodriguez, my people have existed as a true hive mind for millions of years. What you describe in humans is unprecedented, the ability to move between individual and collective consciousness at will. This makes humans uniquely adaptable. Elena sensed an opportunity to address the underlying fears. Counselor, I want to emphasize that this ability doesn't make humans superior to other species. It's simply one evolutionary adaptation among many. The Zephyrians can fly, Aquarians can breathe underwater, Centaurians can process crystalline energy. Each species brings unique capabilities to our Federation. But Counselor Vrakthul wasn't satisfied. Doctor, you speak of adaptation, but what you've shown us could be seen as a military advantage that threatens the balance of power in our galaxy. How do we know humans won't use this ability to dominate other species? Ambassador Chen stood up, her diplomatic training evident in her calm demeanor. Counselor Vrakthul, humanity has been a peaceful member of this federation for over a decade. We've contributed to scientific advancement, cultural exchange, and mutual defense. The discovery of the silent sync doesn't change our commitment to cooperation and peace. Elena decided to take a risk. Counselors, if I may, I'd like to propose an experiment that might address these concerns directly. We've been working on techniques that might allow willing individuals from other species to experience modified versions of collective consciousness. The chamber buzzed with excitement and concern. This was not part of Elena's planned presentation, but her recent research with meditation techniques and neural synchronization had shown promising results. The silent sync appears to be based on principles that aren't exclusively human, Elena continued. By teaching meditation and awareness techniques developed from our research, we've helped some non-human volunteers achieve limited forms of group consciousness. She activated a new set of recordings showing mixed species teams engaging in coordinated activities. While not as seamless as human silent sync, the alien participants showed clear improvements in coordination and mutual awareness. The goal isn't to make other species more human, Elena explained, but to help everyone access their own potential for expanded consciousness. Humans might have this ability naturally, but the underlying principles seem to be universal. Professor Clicksoth added, in my species, we discovered that group meditation sessions using techniques derived from Dr. Rodriguez's research allowed us to achieve unprecedented levels of coordination in our underwater construction projects. We're not becoming a hive mind, but we are accessing greater collective awareness. High Counselor Zerthol's energy form pulsed with contemplation. Dr. Rodriguez, you're suggesting that the silent sync isn't just a human phenomenon, but potentially a doorway to understanding consciousness itself as something that can exist at multiple levels simultaneously. Exactly, Counselor. This discovery might help all of us understand our own potential for expanded awareness and cooperation. The session continued for several more hours, with detailed questions about the research methodology, safety concerns, and potential applications. Elena found herself answering inquiries about everything from the neurochemical basis of the phenomenon to its implications for interspecies diplomacy. As the formal session concluded, Elena felt a mixture of exhaustion and hope. The Federation hadn't rejected the discovery or feared it as a threat. Instead, they seemed genuinely interested in understanding and even experiencing it themselves. Later that evening, Elena met with Ambassador Chen in a quiet cafe overlooking Nexus Prime's spectacular skyline. The city was a marvel of interspecies architecture, with buildings designed to accommodate the needs of dozens of different life forms. "You took a big risk today," Chen said, sipping her coffee while watching Elena pick at her dinner. "Proposing to teach other species collective consciousness techniques wasn't in our planned presentation." Elena looked up from her meal. "I know, but I think it was necessary." The fear in the chamber was palpable. Some species were starting to see the silent sink as a threat rather than a discovery. By showing that the underlying principles might be universal, we changed the conversation from "humans are dangerous" to "consciousness is more amazing than we thought." Chen nodded thoughtfully. The response seemed positive, but we'll need to be careful. There are still factions that see any human advantage as a potential threat to galactic stability. "Which is exactly why we need to make this about shared discovery rather than human uniqueness," Elena replied. "The silent sink isn't just about military applications. It's about understanding how consciousness can exist at both individual and collective levels. If we can help other species access their own versions of expanded awareness, we all benefit." Their conversation was interrupted by Elena's communication device. Commander Thexkar's image appeared, his compound eyes reflecting urgency. "Dr. Rodriguez, I apologize for interrupting your evening, but we have a situation. The Outer Rim colonies are under attack by a massive pirate confederation. They're requesting immediate assistance, and given today's presentation, the Council wants to know if human forces using the silent sink might be able to turn the tide." Elena felt her heart rate increase. "How massive are we talking about, Commander?" "Over 200 ships, Doctor. It's the largest pirate force ever assembled. They're calling themselves the Void Reapers, and they've been using captured Federation technology to devastating effect. Standard tactical approaches have been ineffective." Chen leaned forward. "What's the Council's position?" "They're authorizing an unprecedented joint operation. Ships and personnel from all member species coordinated under a unified command structure, but they specifically want human forces to employ the silent sink if the situation becomes desperate enough." Elena realized this would be the ultimate test of everything they'd discovered, not just the silent sink's effectiveness in large-scale combat, but whether it could truly serve as a force for unity rather than division within the Federation. "Commander, tell the Council we accept, but I want to be there as an observer, and I want Professor Clixoth and representatives from other species to witness everything." Thexkar's antennae quivered with approval. "I was hoping you'd say that, Doctor. This isn't just about winning a battle, it's about proving that human abilities can serve the greater good of all Federation species." As Elena prepared for what might be the most significant test of interspecies cooperation in Federation history, she couldn't help but wonder if the silent sink would prove to be humanity's gift to the galaxy, or the source of new divisions they weren't prepared to handle. The Protocol. The massive Federation fleet assembled at the Kepler Junction was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Over 300 ships from 17 different species hung in formation against the starfield, their diverse designs creating a spectacular display of interspecies engineering. Elena Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the flagship Unity, watching the final preparations with a mixture of excitement and trepidation. General Marcus Stone, the human military commander, chosen to lead the joint operation, approached Elena's observation station. His weathered face showed the strain of coordinating the most complex military operation in Federation history. "Dr. Rodriguez, are you certain about the parameters we've established for silent sink deployment?" Elena checked her instruments one final time. The past week had been a whirlwind of planning, testing, and preparation. Every human military unit in the fleet had undergone intensive training to achieve the silent sink on command, while representatives from other species had prepared to coordinate with human forces operating in collective consciousness mode. "As certain as we can be, General," Elena replied. "The key is timing. If human forces enter silent sink too early, they might become too focused to adapt to changing conditions. Too late, and we lose the tactical advantage." Professor Clixoth emerged from his portable water tank, his amphibious features glistening under the bridge lights. His research over the past week had been crucial in developing the coordination protocols. "Dr. Rodriguez, the alien observation teams are in position throughout the fleet. We'll be monitoring human neural patterns and documenting everything for the Federation Science Council." Admiral Vorthak materialized beside them, his crystalline form humming with energy. "The Void Reapers have taken position around the Centauri mining colonies. 237 ships armed with stolen Federation technology. They're demanding the surrender of all industrial facilities and the evacuation of civilian populations. Elena studied the tactical display showing the enemy formation. The Void Reapers had chosen their position cleverly, using the asteroid field around the colonies to break up long-range sensor readings and create ambush opportunities. It was a perfect testing ground for the Silent Sync's effectiveness in complex tactical situations. Commander Thexkar reports from the advanced scouts, General Stone announced, reading from his communication display. The pirates have established 3 defensive perimeters and are using captured Federation shield technology. Conventional assault would result in catastrophic casualties. Elena activated her personal communication link to the human military units throughout the fleet. All human forces, this is Dr. Rodriguez. Remember, the Silent Sync is not a weapon to be used against our Federation allies. It's a tool for enhanced cooperation and mutual protection. When you enter collective consciousness, you're fighting not just for humanity, but for every species in our Federation. The response was immediate and unanimous. Understood, Doctor, came the voices of hundreds of human soldiers, pilots, and officers. Elena was struck by the unified tone in their responses, as if they were already beginning to synchronize even before entering the Silent Sync. High Counselor Zerthul's energy form appeared on the main communication screen, addressing the entire fleet. Warriors and defenders of the Federation, today we face not just pirates and criminals, but a test of our unity as allied species. The human ability we call the Silent Sync will be employed not as a demonstration of superiority, but as an example of how unique gifts can serve the common good. Elena felt a chill run down her spine. This wasn't just a military operation, it was a defining moment for human-alien relations and the future of the Federation itself. The battle began with a coordinated assault on the outer perimeter. Zephyrian fighters used their natural speed and agility to probe enemy defenses, while Centaurian cruisers provided heavy fire support with their crystalline energy weapons. Aquarian submarines modified for space combat approached through the asteroid field using their species' natural stealth abilities. For the first 2 hours, the battle proceeded conventionally. The Federation forces made steady progress, but at a heavy cost. The pirates' stolen shield technology proved more effective than anticipated, and their knowledge of Federation tactics allowed them to counter many standard approaches. Elena watched the casualty reports mounting and felt her heart sink. They were winning, but slowly, and the price was becoming unbearable. Entire squadrons of brave aliens were being lost to defeat an enemy that seemed to anticipate their every move. General Stone, she said quietly, I think it's time. Stone nodded grimly. All human forces, this is command. Authorization granted for Silent Sync deployment. Repeat, Silent Sync is authorized. What happened next would be studied by military historians and consciousness researchers for centuries to come. Across the Federation fleet, human voices fell silent. Communication channels that had been buzzing with constant tactical updates, status reports, and coordination calls suddenly went quiet. But instead of creating confusion, the silence brought an eerie sense of anticipation, as if the entire human contingent had suddenly become a single, focused organism. Elena watched her instruments with fascination and growing amazement. Neural pattern readings from human personnel throughout the fleet showed the now familiar synchronization signatures, but on a scale she had never witnessed before. Nearly 8,000 human minds were aligning into collective consciousness across dozens of ships, separated by thousands of kilometers. Remarkable, Professor Clicksoth whispered, his amphibious features reflecting awe. The coherence patterns are maintaining stability even across these distances. It's as if space itself has become irrelevant to their consciousness connection. The first sign of the change came from the human fighter squadrons. Without any apparent communication, they began moving in perfect formation, their flight patterns shifting from standard tactical approaches to something that looked almost like an elaborate dance. Each pilot seemed to know exactly where every other pilot would be at any given moment. Commander Thexkar, monitoring from his position with the Zephyrian forces, transmitted back to the flagship. General Stone, the human fighters are performing maneuvers that should be impossible without constant communication. They're anticipating pirate movements before the pirates themselves seem aware of their intentions. Elena watched the tactical display as human forces throughout the fleet began operating with supernatural coordination. Marine boarding parties moved through captured pirate ships with flawless teamwork, each soldier covering angles and providing support as if they had rehearsed these specific scenarios thousands of times. Human engineers worked on damaged Federation ships with unprecedented efficiency, somehow knowing exactly which repairs their colleagues were making in distant sections of the same vessel. But the most remarkable development was how the silent sink began affecting their alien allies. Lieutenant Commander Vexia, the Maloid tactical officer, reported something extraordinary. "Admiral, the human forces aren't just coordinating among themselves, they're somehow anticipating the needs and movements of our non-human personnel as well. It's as if they've extended their collective awareness to include all of us." Elena's instruments confirmed what Vexia was reporting. While the neural synchronization remained exclusively human, the behavioral patterns showed that humans in silent sync were somehow modeling and predicting the actions of their alien colleagues with remarkable accuracy. The tide of battle turned dramatically. Pirates who had been successfully countering Federation tactics found themselves facing an enemy that seemed to think several moves ahead. Human forces would establish covering fire positions moments before alien squadrons needed them, would clear landing zones precisely when evacuation shuttles arrived, and would coordinate support actions that perfectly complemented the natural abilities of each species. A Zephyrian pilot reported in amazement, "The human wingman beside me just cleared a path through asteroid debris exactly where I needed to fly, but I hadn't even decided on that course yet. It's like they can see the future." Elena realized they were witnessing something unprecedented. The silent sync wasn't just creating collective consciousness among humans, it was somehow allowing them to model and predict the optimal coordination patterns for the entire Federation force. General Stone, though unable to communicate with his silent sync forces directly, could see the results on the tactical display. Enemy defensive perimeters that had held for hours were crumbling in minutes. Pirate ships that had seemed untouchable were being systematically isolated and captured. But then something even more extraordinary occurred. Several alien personnel began reporting unusual sensations. Sergeant Cathara, a reptilian marine fighting alongside human boarding parties, transmitted a confused report. "Command, I'm experiencing something strange. I feel like I can sense where the humans are going to move before they do it. It's as if their collective awareness is somehow including me." Professor Clicksoth's instruments detected subtle changes in the neural patterns of aliens working closely with humans in silent sync. While not achieving true collective consciousness themselves, they were somehow being influenced by proximity to the human collective awareness. "Dr. Rodriguez," Clicksoth said excitedly, "I think the silent sync is creating what we might call consciousness resonance in nearby non-human personnel. They're not joining the collective, but they're being influenced by it." Elena watched as this phenomenon spread throughout the mixed species teams. Alien soldiers began moving with enhanced coordination when working alongside humans. Engineering teams showed improved efficiency. Even ship crews reported better coordination between human and non-human personnel. The battle reached its climax when the Federation forces faced the pirates' final stronghold, a massive command ship protected by overlapping shield arrays and surrounded by the elite vessels of the Void Reaper leadership. General Stone made a decision that would define the rest of the engagement. Instead of ordering a direct assault, he activated the fleet-wide communication system and addressed all personnel, both human and alien. "All Federation forces, this is General Stone. We've proven today that our diversity is our strength. Human abilities complement alien capabilities, and together we're stronger than any of us could be alone. I'm authorizing a final coordinated assault using every species' unique strengths, coordinated through human silent sync awareness." What followed was the most beautiful display of interspecies cooperation in recorded history. Zephyrian fighters used their speed and agility to create diversionary attacks, their movements perfectly timed to complement Centaurian energy bombardments. Aquarian stealth ships positioned themselves with mathematical precision to exploit gaps created by Ursinian heavy assault vessels. Maloid command ships provided real-time tactical analysis that somehow synchronized perfectly with human intuitive battle awareness. The humans in silent sync served as the coordinating consciousness for the entire operation, their collective awareness somehow modeling the optimal use of every species' abilities. They weren't controlling their alien allies, but rather creating a framework of coordination that allowed each species to operate at peak effectiveness. The pirate command ship fell in 17 minutes. The remaining Void Reaper vessels, seeing their leadership destroyed and facing an enemy that seemed to read their minds, surrendered rather than face annihilation. As the battle ended and the all-clear sounded throughout the Federation fleet, the humans gradually emerged from silent sync. The transition was gentle this time, a gradual return to individual consciousness rather than the abrupt snapback Elena had observed in previous instances. Lieutenant Tom Bradley was among the first to report his experience. Dr. Rodriguez, it was incredible. While we were in silent sync, I could sense not just my fellow humans, but somehow I could feel the optimal coordination patterns for our entire fleet. It wasn't telepathy with the aliens, but more like being able to see the perfect dance that all of us could perform together. Sergeant Santos added her perspective. It felt like being part of something much bigger than just human consciousness, like we were the nervous system for an organism that included every species in the fleet. Elena documented everything, her mind racing with the implications. The silent sync wasn't just a human phenomenon anymore. It had become a bridge between species, a way for diverse consciousness to coordinate without losing their individual identities. 3 days later, Elena stood once again before the Galactic Council, but this time the atmosphere was completely different. Where before there had been suspicion and concern, now there was wonder and excitement. High Counselor Zerthul opened the session with words that would be remembered throughout Federation history. Dr. Rodriguez, what we witnessed at the Centauri colonies was not just a military victory, but a demonstration of what our Federation can become when we truly work together. The human silent sync has shown us that consciousness itself might be more flexible and inclusive than we ever imagined. Elena activated her presentation, showing the battle recordings that had been transmitted throughout Federation space. Honored counselors, I believe we've discovered something that goes beyond human abilities. The silent sync appears to be a gateway to understanding how different forms of consciousness can coordinate while maintaining their unique characteristics. Ambassador Chen stood to address the council. Counselors, humanity offers to share everything we've learned about the silent sync freely with all Federation species. We propose the establishment of joint research facilities to explore how collective consciousness principles might benefit everyone. The response was overwhelmingly positive. Species after species volunteered to participate in consciousness research programs. The Zephyrians wanted to explore how their rapid pheromone communication might interface with collective awareness. The Aquarians proposed studying group consciousness in their deep ocean environments. Even the traditionally individualistic reptilians expressed interest in understanding how enhanced coordination might benefit their military traditions. But it was Counselor Zekthara of the Hive Queens who made the most profound observation. Dr. Rodriguez, my people have existed as a true collective consciousness for millions of years, but we've always seen this as incompatible with individual awareness. What humans have shown us is that consciousness can exist simultaneously at multiple levels. This doesn't just change our understanding of humanity, it changes our understanding of consciousness itself. Elena felt a deep sense of satisfaction as she realized what they had accomplished. The silent sync had started as a mysterious human ability that caused concern about potential threats to galactic balance. But through careful research, open sharing, and practical demonstration, it had become a bridge between species and a pathway to greater understanding. The final vote was unanimous. The Federation would establish the Silent Protocol, not just an alert system for when humans entered collective consciousness, but a comprehensive framework for interspecies coordination based on the principles they had discovered. General Stone, who had been invited to the council session, addressed the assembly with military directness. Counselors, what we learned in battle was that the Silent Protocol isn't about human superiority or alien submission. It's about creating harmony between different forms of consciousness. When humans enter silent sync while working with other species, we're not controlling anyone, we're creating a space where everyone can operate at their highest potential. Elena added the scientific perspective. The research possibilities are endless. We've only begun to understand how consciousness can exist at individual, collective, and coordinated levels simultaneously. Every species might have latent abilities that could emerge through proper training and understanding. Professor Clicksoth, who had become Elena's closest collaborator, presented their joint findings on consciousness resonance. Our studies suggest that all sentient species have the potential for enhanced coordination and group awareness. The human silent sync simply provides a framework that helps other species access their own capabilities. As the session concluded, Elena felt a profound sense of hope for the future of the Federation. What had started as a source of potential division had become the foundation for unprecedented unity and cooperation. 6 months later, Elena stood in her new laboratory aboard Research Station Alpha, the Federation's first dedicated consciousness research facility. Through the viewport, she could see ships from dozens of species arriving for joint training exercises using silent protocol coordination techniques. The station itself was a marvel of interspecies design, with specialized environments allowing each species to contribute their unique perspectives to consciousness research. Aquarian meditation pools sat next to Zephyrian flight chambers, while Centaurian crystal resonance chambers provided spaces for energy-based consciousness exploration. Elena's communication device chimed with an incoming message from Captain Mitchell, who was now leading the Federation's first multi-species silent protocol unit. His team included humans trained in advanced silent sync techniques working alongside aliens who had learned to achieve consciousness resonance states. Dr. Rodriguez, I wanted to report our latest training results. We've achieved coordination levels that exceed even our best previous performance. The Zephyrian pilots can now anticipate our silent sync battle patterns, while the Aquarian engineers seem to intuitively understand our collective awareness needs. It's like we're all becoming part of something bigger while still being ourselves. Elena smiled as she reviewed the data from Mitchell's unit. They were proving that the silent protocol could create unprecedented cooperation without erasing the diversity that made the Federation strong. Each species maintained their unique abilities and perspectives while contributing to a greater whole. A soft chime announced Professor Clicksoth's arrival in her laboratory. His amphibious features gleamed with excitement as he approached. Elena, you need to see the latest reports from the outer colonies. 3 more species have requested silent protocol training programs, and the Ethereal Collective has proposed joint consciousness research that could revolutionize our understanding of energy-based life forms. Elena looked out at the busy space around Research Station Alpha, watching humans and aliens working together with the enhanced coordination that had become possible through their discoveries. The silent protocol had grown far beyond its origins as a mysterious human ability. It had become a symbol of what was possible when diverse forms of consciousness learned to work together. You know what, Clicksoth? Elena said, still watching the coordinated dance of ships outside her viewport. I think we've only scratched the surface of what consciousness can become when we stop seeing it as something that divides us and start seeing it as something that connects us. The professor's skin rippled with patterns Elena had learned indicated deep satisfaction. The humans have given the galaxy a great gift, Elena. Not just the silent sync itself, but the understanding that consciousness is far more flexible and wonderful than any of us imagined. Elena nodded, feeling a profound sense of accomplishment. The journey from that first mysterious silence during a pirate attack to the establishment of the Federation's consciousness research program had been incredible, but she knew this was just the beginning. Somewhere in the galaxy, new forms of consciousness were waiting to be discovered. New ways for diverse species to coordinate and cooperate without losing their individuality. New possibilities for what sentient life could become when it learned to work together across the boundaries of species, physiology, and traditional understanding. The silent protocol had taught them that true strength came not from uniformity, but from diversity united in common purpose. And that lesson would guide the Federation into a future brighter than any single species could have imagined alone. The silence that had once seemed mysterious and threatening had become the foundation for a new kind of communication, one that transcended words and connected consciousness itself. In learning to listen to the silence, the galaxy had discovered the music of cooperation that would define the next age of sentient civilization. Elena turned back to her research, knowing that each discovery brought them closer to understanding the full potential of consciousness in all its magnificent forms. The silent protocol was no longer just about humans going quiet in battle. It was about all species learning to hear the deeper harmonies that connected every thinking being in the cosmos. And in that silence, they had found not emptiness, but infinite possibility.